I'm Dr. Ben Steere. I'm an assistant professor of anthropology here at the University of West Georgia. And what I'll talk about today is the field work that my students did this summer at the University of West Georgia Archaeological Field School in Cherokee, North Carolina. And what I'm going to do is use just a small set of the artifacts from our excavation this summer to sort of tell the story about what we were looking for and talk about our archaeology site a little bit. We were working at an archaeology site in Cherokee called the Boundary Tree Site. It's located on what used to be the northern boundary of the Qualla Boundary, or the Cherokee Indian Reservation, and the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And we were investigating an archaeology site that dates to what archaeologists in the southeast call the Late Woodland period. That's a time from about 600 AD to 900 AD. That's a poorly understood time period in western North Carolina. We don't have a lot of archaeological sites that date to that period. So we knew from previous research there was a good late woodland site. We went to investigate it. Another important aspect of our field school is that it was a collaborative field school with the Tribal Historic Preservation Office of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. So we worked very closely with members of the Cherokee community, with Cherokee archaeologists on this project together. We took our students out to the site. We taught them basic archaeological and field excavation methods. And working side by side with Cherokee archaeologists, we very quickly started to discover artifacts that were, in fact, dating the time period we were interested in. So people lived at the Boundary Tree Site for thousands of years, and we did find some occupation, or evidence, rather, of some really early occupation at Boundary Tree. We found things like this. This is a Morrow Mountain, a Guilford. This is a Guilford projectile point. It dates to the Middle Woodland period, anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. Middle Archaic period, 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. And we also found this groundstone axe, half of a groundstone axe. This would have been used for clearing trees, woodworking, chopping heavy wood. So this is evidence people were living here well before the time period we were interested in. But the bulk of what we found this summer were areas of the site where we had pottery that dates to the late woodland period. So what we were really interested in finding was this pottery that dates to, again, between 600 and 900 AD, has very thin walls compared to later pottery. This is pottery made by Cherokee potters in the 1700s, and you can see that the thickness of the walls is really much thicker. The paste is a little bit more coarse. You get finer paste and temper in these earlier vessels. And the decorations are different as well. In the late woodland period, we get these really intricate, complicated stamped motifs with really thin lands and grooves, really sort of thin lines and decorations. We were also really excited to find very good examples of what archaeologists in Georgia call Swift Creek pottery. This is a really very famous pottery type, some of the most beautiful, complicated stamped pottery in all of Eastern North America. Is found right here in Georgia. We have some of it locally in Carrollton, but also found as far north as North Carolina. And so finding this pottery tells us a couple of things. One, we know people were living in our site between 600 and 900 AD, which is really exciting. That sort of adds a dot on the map for understanding that time period and what folks were doing then. But it also speaks to the people up in Cherokee having some broader relationships with Native peoples living down here in Georgia, other parts of the world where people are making the Swift Creek pottery. This really gorgeous, elaborate paddle stamp pottery. The way it's made is as you're building a pot, you take a carved wooden paddle and sort of smack the design onto the outside of the pot. We've had archaeological analyses of the materials used to make this pottery that suggest that people were actually using local clay, but potentially trading the paddles that were used to make this pottery. So we can think about our folks up in Cherokee being involved in these sort of broader networks of trade and exchange. So again, we were really excited to find this good late woodland occupation. Also evidence, again, here's another archaic period projectile point. Evidence of folks living here on this site for thousands of years, but most of the occupation dates to an important time period that archaeologists don't understand very well. It's especially important because this is the homeland of the eastern band of Cherokee Indians, the homeland of all Cherokees. They're really interested in using archaeology as a tool to learn about their past. When people think about Cherokee archaeology, they tend to think mostly about later artifacts like Cherokee pottery. We've also got some glass trade beads here. These are from a different archaeological site, but just for comparison, we think more of Cherokee archaeology perhaps in terms of historical archaeology. So thinking about things like Cherokee pottery, glass trade beads, things like lead shot that we find on contact period sites. But this is also a really important part of Cherokee history and prehistory, sort of understanding people ancestral to the Cherokee and how these sort of notions of Cherokee culture and identity developed over a good 1,000-year period in Cherokee. This is also a really good learning opportunity for our students. They learned archaeological excavation techniques. They kept field books, so they took notes on their excavations, made really formal maps that we'll use for our site publications, but also kept sort of informal journals and diaries and maps in the field. They did a great job learning archaeological excavation techniques, and I think if you talk to any of our students, they'll say they had a good time.